Welcome to the Live Like Eden podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Years ago, out of nowhere, I found myself in a radical shift in consciousness that took me over 20 years to fully wrap my head around. Yes, that's right. It took me a long time, and without any warning, down the rabbit hole of darkness I went. Now I'm here to share with you all the insights of awakening, spirituality, health, the energetic world we're living in, and my absolute favorite topic, just how crazy the ego mind can be. These subjects are designed to help you understand the awakening process, to open your mind, and prepare you for your own unique spiritual journey toward inner peace. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's discussion. Before we get started with today's show, I want to share with you something I've been working on. I have created a quiz just for you to see where you are on your own unique spiritual path. Everybody loves a quiz, right? You can go to my website at livelikeeden.com, click on the quiz pop-up, and answer 10 quick questions. You'll get an immediate response emailed to you with your results, a personalized podcast playlist including 5 Live Like Eden episodes that will offer you assistance where you currently are. And I've also thrown in a few bonus episodes that you'll receive a few days later. If you're a spiritual junkie, you're in the midst of awakening, or you're simply curious where you might be in your own spiritual process, check it out and feel free to share with your friends who might be interested too. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I speak about dissolving illusions regularly on this show, which is the awakening process. It's really about the undoing or the unlearning of everything to find the true essence of spirit within us. Last episode, I went into unlearning the ego's disguises. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's unlearn some myths about health and wellness. I love health and wellness. It's something I talk about frequently on the show, how to live here and feel healthy in the body while we're traversing and navigating this very insane world, right? While we're here, it would be nice to feel well, feel energetic, have lots of energy to do the things that we want to do, or how to heal if we're dealing with illness, which happens to all of us. So let's get into this today. Let's talk about unmasking the wellness lies that are out there and 5 myths that you might need to drop for better health. First, let's talk about the protein myth. We're told we need tons of protein. Is that true? Next, we'll talk about how we've been literally conditioned since the day we're born that dairy and drinking milk is good for strong bones. Is it true? Next, heavy exercise equals longevity. I don't know. Do people that constantly work out 24/7 live longer? Let's look at that. And then number 4, what about the sleeping situation going on? It seems to be dominating the health world. You have to get 8 hours of sleep. It has to be quality sleep. You need to go to bed at the same time every night. And people who struggle with sleep know this is key, right? They do. And lots of people are on sleep machines and sleep apnea machines. Why is that? What's happening with the sleep? And is it true that you really need 8 hours of sleep? And last but not least, the big daddy, where I want to devote most of the show today, is this common myth that the sun is bad for you. Is it? We're going to dive into a little brief history on sunlight and its use in people's health. First, let's start with the protein myth. This is something that is rooted in our thinking. As I often speak about on the show, we are always conditioned in this world. All the external forces around us are telling us to do this, eat this, live a certain way. You must have all these nutrients to survive. And protein, for some reason, is what everybody asks. If you are a vegetarian, and full disclosure, I have been on a plant diet for almost 20 years. It's been a long time. I transitioned away from animal products when I was pregnant with my firstborn daughter. Even during the pregnancy, I started transitioning into eating a certain way, and I just noticed that I felt better. This is not a show to preach to you to be a vegetarian or anything like that, but I do want to bring it up because the number one question people ask if you are a plant eater is, well, how do you do that? Where do you get your protein? Because we've been told that protein comes from animal products, right? that that's the main source of protein, and you need to get your protein from meat or dairy. And most of us believe that. And we grow up doing this. Well, I got to eat my protein. I got to get my animal protein in because we're not even taught that, wow, there's a lot of protein in plants, you know? So when you think about this conditioning, it's hard to wrap your mind around, is it true that we need a lot of protein at all? I know people who are just constantly eating tons of protein. Like that's the main thing that they even think about in the diet. When the body and the brain are running on carbohydrates or glucose, we're talking about, where am I going to get all my protein? And it's very rare that you would be protein deficient because I think the body doesn't need as much as they're telling us. So most of us, believe it or not, are actually eating way too much protein. The China study, written by Colin Campbell, is a great book, and it's basically summarizing the research project that went on in China for a 30-year period. And the main focus of this book is how eating excess animal protein can link to chronic illness, disease, and cancer. And they could literally turn it on and off in a lab. Now, that's a laboratory setting, but they also noticed in the general population that they were looking at that this was true, that the people in the cities of China that were eating a lot more animal protein had a higher disease rate than the people living in the rural communities of China, which were more plant-based eaters, which was part of the Chinese diet, traditionally speaking. I believe in the China study, and I will link it in the show notes today, but I believe it's over 8%. So if you're eating over 8% of your daily protein intake in animal products, in animal protein, you are at a higher risk for degenerative disease or cancer. That might be shocking to people because 8% of your daily caloric intake in protein is not a lot. We're talking a very small amount. You can certainly go dive deep into that research and look at it. It's fascinating. They also concluded that plant protein didn't do that to the body. It didn't act the same way as animal protein. So for those of you that are concerned about your protein intake, maybe do a little more research and think, well, maybe I don't need as much as I think. And can I get it from other sources like plants? You know, all the green leafies are loaded with protein, loaded with it. The key is not necessarily worrying about how much protein you're eating, but that you're eating enough fresh food that contains all the essential amino acids that you need to survive. They have shown that a vegetarian diet or a plant-based diet provides you all that you need, that it is not necessary to consume animal products to live. And another area that you can actually see this is in the blue zone communities. Those of you that are familiar with the blue zones, I've also talked about this in the past, but they have specific regions throughout the world that they've located where the largest population of centenarians live. These are people that live over 100 years old. And they look at these communities and say, what is it that these people are doing that live so much longer than the average age in America, which I believe is in the low 70s. It's not that high. In fact, I think it just got a deduction recently, like it went down. That's a 30-year difference. That's a lot of life. And you can look at what some of those factors could be. And in the blue zone communities, they eat a very low animal protein diet. They rarely eat any meat at all. And if they do, it's usually a special occasion. You know, like here in America, when we celebrate Thanksgiving, we eat turkey. Now, in the blue zones, they'd probably do that once a year, you know. But people here are eating meat 2, 3, 4 times a day. It's a regular intake. So that's a big difference in those communities. It goes to show that if the blue zones aren't consuming a high amount of animal products at all, but they're living longer, then you should be able to conclude that it's not necessary to consume a high amount of animal products to get protein. There must be another way they're getting protein in their diet, and the research shows that it's through plant foods. One other thing I'll bring up about protein that's actually detrimental, and you can look this up and I'll link a couple things in the show notes for you, but excess protein can actually cause kidney damage. It's very difficult for the kidneys to take on too much protein. Protein is acidic to the body. And when you have too much acid going on in the system, the body is working overtime to try to filter out those acids. And the kidneys are the filtration system. The kidneys want to eliminate waste. But when it's overloaded with excess, it becomes very difficult. People can develop kidney disease. And in late stage kidney disease, you're talking kidney failure. I have listened to a naturopath for a long time. His name is Dr. Morse. He talks about this routinely, that protein is an acid and it is not healthy for the body in large amounts like that. Not at all. It's really something to think about. Do we need a ton of it to be healthy? These studies and these communities throughout the world seem to say that's not the case, that it's actually a complete myth. Or is it just a lie? I don't know. You could think about, are they doing this on purpose? The meat and dairy industries have a huge lobbying power in Washington, D.C., and they need to sell their product. They're a company, they're a business. It's a huge operation. If people stop eating tons of meat and they lower their intake, those companies are going to take a hit. They just will. Is there some of that going on? I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. It seems in our world today, especially in the West, that we're more concerned about the economy than we are about people's health. Go figure. Next, let's address this myth. You need to drink milk for strong bones. How many of you remember the ad campaigns years ago? Milk, it does a body good. It's been pushed into our minds over and over and over. Milk for strong bones. And they're using calcium, right, as that mineral that's making our bones so strong. Yet how come the United States consumes a lot of dairy? A lot of people eat a ton of dairy and they also drink milk. Kids are brought up on milk and told you got to drink your milk for strong bones. Yet we have a very large percentage of the population that has osteoporosis. That doesn't make any sense. Many people who have osteoporosis might say something like, I don't understand. I've always drank my milk. I've had plenty of dairy and I still have osteoporosis. It doesn't make sense. If it's true, it makes no sense. Well, what's actually happening when you drink milk? Milk or dairy has a lot of protein in it, right? It also has protein. And what happens when you ingest a lot of protein? It's acidic. It's throwing the pH off in the body. And the blood has to have a neutral pH. I think it's around 7.2 or 7 point something. And the body will do whatever it has to keep the blood at that pH level or you're dead. So what happens when you ingest a lot of dairy, which is high protein, and it's throwing off the blood pH? So what does the body do? What happens to make sure that your blood pH stays neutral? The body robs calcium out of your bones because calcium is a neutralizer, right? It's alkaline. It's going to neutralize that acidity in the blood and stabilize it. And when it pulls the calcium out of your bones and neutralizes, then what does it have to do? It has to excrete it out of the body. So now it goes out through the urine. The calcium from your bones is now gone. That makes sense. Now you can see why, if I consume a lot of dairy, that could be a problem. If you're really somebody who's consuming a lot of it, and maybe you are starting to develop osteoporosis, and you're not getting why. But the people in the blue zones who do not consume dairy, some of them consume goat's milk or something like that, but they go right out to the goat and they grab the milk. It's not going through a process. But overall, their diet is low, very low in dairy. And just to mention the 5 regions, these are smaller communities. One of them's in Costa Rica. One of them's in Loma Linda, California. One of them is in Sardinia, Italy. Icaria, I think it's Icaria, Greece. And the last one is Okinawa, Japan. These are the different regions they've looked at. And I've watched documentaries on this. You can get on YouTube, or I think there's stuff on Netflix. It's really interesting. And honestly, it's not shocking. It's not shocking when you learn, oh, if I just get back to the natural way of living, my health might improve. We might actually feel better and live longer, is what it seems. So for those of you that think dairy is essential for strong bones, it's just simply not true. I actually raised all 4 of my kids on plants. They never drank milk. Never. Not when at least I was feeding them as young people. And they were vibrant and healthy and growing and tall and, developing just fine. It's simply not true that it's essential for you to drink cow's milk to thrive. In fact, if you really want to look at nature, cow's milk is for the baby cow. That is why the cow is producing the milk at all. As humans, for those of you women who've had children, we produce breast milk to feed the child for around a year. I mean, on average, up to a year. Some women go longer, some can't breastfeed, or some go a lot sooner. After that process, think about it. Is it necessary for humans to still consume breast milk? you know, you start eating, your teeth are there and you start eating food. Same thing with the cow. After the cow is developed enough, the cow is not continuing to consume milk. So all the animals in the world that produce milk are doing it for the beginning stages of life. And even in human breast milk, there is very, very little protein. I didn't mention it in the protein myth, but I just want to bring that up. And this is true for when we're speaking about consuming dairy for strong bones or just consuming dairy in general for good health. It isn't true. The blue zone communities that are living the longest on the planet do not consume very much of it at all. One of my daughters several years ago fell hard on her bike. We were going on this path and she was just cruising downhill really fast and kind of lost control and just flew out and broke her arm. And it was one of those breaks that when you see it, you're like, oh, that's broken. You could see it was completely broken in half. It didn't puncture through the skin or anything, but you could just see it kind of hanging there. And the poor thing, gosh, she's a trooper. But anyway, when I took her in to get it set and get a cast and the whole 9 yards, they consistently said, just make sure she's consuming a ton of dairy so that she builds that bone mass back up. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, thank you very much. And I left and thought, I'm not going to do that. She's never really consumed milk or much dairy at all. So I just kept her eating how we always ate. And you know what? Her bones healed. Amazing, right? Not only did they heal, but they heal larger than the original bone because the way that it grew back in is really interesting. So again, your body will heal even without dairy. Let's move on to number 3, which is heavy exercise equals longevity. Everybody needs to be in the gym, hitting it hard, right? You got to live longer. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Well, I don't know. Is it true? What do the blue zones say? Do they exercise all day long, sweating their asses off, getting their heart rate to an astronomical level for a certain period of time? No, they don't. They don't. Having said that, though, they move regularly in their life. They're just not hitting the gym, you know, and they're not running for long periods of time. They are actually walking quite a bit. So in their communities, they are walking to and from wherever they're going, maybe into the town. They're not driving a lot. They're gardening. They're doing things outside in the sunshine. They believe in movement. So you could rethink doing a lot of strenuous exercise unless you love it, right? If it's something you love to do, great. But I'm not sure that it has anything to do with how long you're going to live. I'm not sure that excess exercise is going to put years on your life. For those of you that really need to sweat, and I'm kind of one of them, I want to sweat a little bit. It just makes me feel good in the body. And I might run, but I don't run long. I just don't. It's not something I care to do. But there's a lot of people out there who really do love to go for miles and miles and miles. And I do have to wonder if excess exercise, produces a lot of acid in the body. People that overdo exercise do have a lot of pain. There's injury involved. The body's really trying to repair itself regularly. If you're looking to really live longer, like if that's your goal, to be honest, sometimes I'm like, why do we want to live longer than 100 years here? you know? I mean, the way the world operates, I'm sometimes like, I don't know if I care about living so long as I just really want to feel well while I'm here. That's a benefit, right? Feeling high energy, functionable, able to do the things that you want to do with the time that you have. Exercise is as simple as walking. Just take a walk every day. Stretch your body. Deep stretching is amazing. It really opens up the joints and you feel like you can move again. So many people, as we age, we get stiff. We get really stiff. Like, how many of you can just right now stand up, bend down, and touch the floor? Most of us are like, oh, my back. Oh, my hamstrings. Oh, I'm so stiff. Stretching so that you can move freely in your life is important. So maybe add some sort of deep stretching class or yoga or Pilates or anything that kind of really opens up the body. Not only when you're doing that, you're improving the circulation throughout the body. The blood is able to move to all the areas of the extremities. There's so many wonderful things about stretching. Personally, years ago, I got into yin yoga, which is holding specific postures or stretches for at least 3 to 5 minutes each. It's really amazing how much deeper you can get into your own body when you just hold the stretch. So you don't have to follow a class, but you could think about the stretches that you like or the stretches you want to do and hold them. Just hold on to them a little bit longer and let the body open. If you're somebody who's stretching real quick, like, oh, I'm going to stretch here, quick, quick, it's not really enough. You have to kind of get the body in a position for a certain period of time to truly open it up. Next, let's talk about sleeping. It's ingrained in us right now. Every time I turn on anything wellness now, it's like sleep seems to be at the forefront. Somehow we've all lost the ability to sleep properly. And there's so many people that struggle to stay asleep. I have lots of people in my immediate circle that do not sleep, and it can cause havoc on your day and make you feel low energy. It messes with your cognitive function. Maybe you start to go a little nuts too. And then you start worrying about sleeping every single night. Then there's a stress level involved now. I don't know if I'm going to get enough sleep, or I can't stay asleep. Or maybe you're somebody who can't fall asleep. You just cannot fall asleep. You're up all night and then you fall asleep at like 4 a.m. and you sleep 2 hours, and you feel horrible the next morning. You're groggy, you can't function. Or maybe you fall asleep just fine and then you wake up and you're just wide awake. How many of you have done that in the middle of the night? You're just going, I am wide awake. And I always think, well, if you're wide awake, maybe get up and do something and then try to go back. But just having a solid night's sleep seems to be helpful for almost all of us. I mean, I think there's some rarities out there who really don't need a lot of sleep. But is it true that you need 8 hours? Like, I think maybe that's different for each person. Everybody knows how they feel when they sleep a certain amount. But I always like to think that maybe it's not so much about amount as it is about the quality of sleep that you're getting. I know for myself, and this is just me, and I'm sure you know where you stand on your sleep schedule, but if I get at least 5 quality sleep hours, I'll be okay the next day. Anything less than that, and I feel a little tired. If I could at least get 5 to 6 deep hours, I'm going to be fine. There's not going to be any issues. I'm not going to feel lethargic or anything like that. But if you go in today to do a regular physical, I guarantee the doc's going to ask about your sleep. You're off to the sleep study program where they're monitoring you all night. And then most of the people that go do that are now on sleep apnea machines. There's so many people and young people sleeping with the mask on, getting enough oxygen. And why are we losing oxygen at night? What's happening? Why is everybody not able to sleep and practically dying while they're sleeping? I go back to the simple explanation of what's happening in the body. And I love Arnold Ehret. For those of you that know who Arnold Ehret was, because he's no longer living, he lived in Germany in the 1800s. He was a big advocate that man is basically clogged. The whole system is constipated, not just the bowels. The whole entire system is clogged with waste or excess mucus, right? Or excess lymphatic stagnation, you could say. And if you think about that, you can imagine that the cells are constricted with waste matter. And in his evaluation of working with thousands of people in his lifetime, it was because of the diet. It was simple that man was eating the wrong foods. And when you eat foods that cause or create heavy mucus in the body, for instance, if you looked at white rice and a white flour, and you added water to it, right? It's really pasty. Have you ever seen this? I mean, you can just make a paste and it's thick and gooey. And imagine that going into the body, clogging up the system. And most of us eat a lot of refined carbohydrates and things like this that cause buildup in the body. When you have a buildup in the body, what happens? The oxygen is now constricted in the body too. And sometimes I wonder if people developing difficulty sleeping or unable to breathe or whatever's going on at night has to do with simply a clogged system. The prescription today is to get them on a sleep apnea machine. But what is the real solution? Because that's just a temporary band-aid. That's not really solving the issue. Could it be as simple as maybe try eating different foods, get rid of the waste out of the body, and the oxygen delivery will be optimal? I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just thinking out loud that it just makes sense that people who do detoxes and eliminate waste from the body, not only do they feel better with more energy, but they sleep better. They sleep a lot better. How many of you have done a shift of diet in your life or done a period of time where you really focused on eating fruits and vegetables and lighter foods to kind of give the body a rest so it resets itself? And did you notice what happened to your sleep? Did you sleep better? Did you have more energy? Did you need to sleep as much? You know, there's the other thing. There's people who sleep 12 hours a day. It's like half the day. I always think, what could you do if you had more time? You know, that's one of the things people say all the time. I don't have enough time. Well, maybe we should not sleep as much. You know? When I was doing a lot of yoga when I was younger, we often would look into the yogis in India. And throughout history, there's lots of accounts of people not needing to sleep, that they would just be in these states of meditation and high energy, not needing that much sleep. And is that true? Is it true that we need to shut ourselves off for at least 8 hours to function? It seems to be the case for most of us. The animals are doing it. Everything is sleeping. If we were eating properly, if we were getting adequate sunlight and breathing fresh air, would that change? You know, would we really need to sleep that much? And I guess the only way to find out is to kind of experiment for yourself and see how you feel, rather than listening to, you need 8 hours of sleep. You need to go to bed at 8 p.m. every night. You know? I mean, maybe that works for some people, but is it necessary? I don't know. I mean, I go to bed when I'm tired. I just listen to my body. Am I tired yet? No, then I'm not going to bed yet. Questioning the sleeping myth might be beneficial. Is it more important to think quality over quantity? You know, you can do the research yourself or just test it out. You probably already know the answer to that. You know, could some of these sleeping ailments be solved through natural detoxification process and elimination of mucus forming foods, foods that are clogging the system, which is high starchy foods, refined carbohydrates and breads, pastas, these things that can clog the system. And another thing to think about, and this is going to transition into the big one that I want to focus on today, which is lack of sunlight contributing to people's sleep disturbances? Let's look at it. Let's look at this concept that we've been told for years now. It seems like a lie. It seems like a blatant lie. How many of us have grown up thinking the sun is bad for you? Now, when I was young, I didn't think that. It wasn't as ingrained in our minds back then as it is today. And I've noticed over time that people are raising their kids out in the sun. They're completely covered up, going to the pool with a head-to-toe water suit, hats on, sunglasses on babies, lathering up the SPF 150 all over the skin. And it sort of blows my mind a little bit, because if you just think about sun in general, it is the life force of the earth. If we did not have sun, we don't live here. It really is our energy source. And yet we're told that it's terrible for you to get out of the sun. The WHO has it listed as a carcinogenic, causing cancer. And is that true? Everyone thinks the sun is causing skin cancer. But some people who get skin cancer, they have skin cancer underneath their armpits or in very strange crevices in the body that do not see the sun. So does that add up? I don't know. You be the judge. So is the sun bad for you? And is the lack of sun contributing to health trouble, chronic illness, disease? Is it contributing? So I just came across a lecture from a doctor in Germany, and I think he gave the lecture back in like 2014 or 15. And it was really all about the history of sun therapy. Up until the 1950s, sun therapy and light therapy were used for your health, and they were used for healing. What? you know, like it's crazy to me that all of this knowledge that's been around for centuries, that the sun has beneficial healing properties, is now being completely blocked, and we're told to stay out of the sun. Not only are we told to stay out of the sun, but we're told that when you go out into it, that you need to wear sunscreen. I've never understood that, ever. I just don't think about it like, why would the number one source of life be harmful? Why would it? I mean, animals are basking in it. I watch my Alaskan Malamute, who has a ton of hair. You know, she's a fluff ball of hair. Go out and bask in the sun, even when it's hot. And she won't lay there all day, but she will lay in it like she's sunbathing in the sun. And you would think because she's full of hair that she wouldn't want to do that. It'd be too hot. But she does it. What does she know that the rest of humanity does not? you know? And why would the WHO be telling us this? I don't know if I put too much into the WHO. I mean, they were telling us to cover our faces and stay indoors when the whole planet was coming down with a flu-like symptom. I don't think I can trust that. So there's these huge barriers that are put up today between the sun and us. They have made a barrier, making it look as if the sun is something we should avoid. In ancient Greece, in ancient Egypt, they knew that the sun was beneficial. And there's actually scientists who've looked at the skulls of the ancient Egyptians, and they looked at the skulls of the Persians, and they noticed a massive difference. And the difference was that the Egyptians had a very thick, hard, strong skull, and the Persians did not. It was a lot weaker, to the point where you could even break it. And they wondered why. Why is that? And they came to the conclusion that the Egyptians had their heads in the sun and they didn't cover up their entire body. They were in the sunshine. Where the Persians wore hats or wore covers over the head, and they wore long things covering the body. Now, today, would they say, well, that's not enough scientific evidence? Well, I don't know. Do we need to go into the details underneath to not just look with our own eyeballs to see, wow, that's interesting? Another thing that was interesting is, 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, they would take coal miners who are spending all day in the dark, and they're in these mines, so they're really disconnected from the sunlight. And they went into these pithead baths, is what they were called, and they were flanked by quartz, these quartz lamps. And they made the coal miners go through this to receive adequate light into their bodies. I think they even went in naked. So it was a full coverage of light into the system. They did it because the miners had more energy to do the job because they were receiving adequate light. I mean, just think about it. We know for a fact that people that suffer from mental disturbance or depression oftentimes aren't getting enough sunlight. There's a lot of research into areas and environments that are cloudy and rainy all winter long that people aren't as lively. It makes you lethargic. Interesting that they would do this. And there were hospitals that were using light therapy all over the world. Not only were they prescribing sunlight, natural sunlight for people that were ill, they were actually using artificial light when there was not adequate amounts of sunlight available. So if you're in an environment where you're not getting a lot of sun, they would just use light therapies on people. And they'd even treat skin cancer with sun treatment. Can you imagine a dermatologist telling you that today? you know? You want to do a sun treatment to get rid of your skin cancer. They would gawk at that. They would say that's crazy. But I will link this lecture in the show notes. He goes into great detail about a lot of the therapies that they actually used and how they used them to help heal lots of different ailments like rickets, where people would just kind of wither away, the bone structures failing, and they become real scrawny and then they don't live. They were treating rickets, they were treating tuberculosis with light therapy and having tremendous success. And you could see the transformation in the patients just through light therapy. Another thing that light therapy or sunlight does is it provides a natural antibiotic. It kills bacteria. So before the invention of antibiotics, they were using phototherapy as a way to treat bacterial disease. But once they invented the pill, it's almost like it was completely erased from the medical literature. Now everybody's on an antibiotic. That's the first thing that a doctor will prescribe you, right? If you're sick, and you know that when you go in, I think I just need to go in and get some antibiotics. Could the sunlight help you get better faster? Maybe. Give it a try. So there's all this evidence in the past that we were actually using the sun as a helpful tool in our health, that getting enough sunlight was critical to your health. If you think about the shift of believing that the sun was helpful into a state of the sun is going to kill you, think of all the things that have happened over time to get us to this place where we all believe that the sun is going to harm us, to stay out of it, to stay indoors. When humanity was living in a more natural state, we're living on the land, correct? We're living in shelters that had natural sunlight more available, or you didn't spend all day in the shelter. There's the difference. You may have slept in there, but you didn't spend your whole day inside a building. What do we do today? We're indoors all day long. In the winter months, we're probably indoors 24/7 for several months at a time with no natural sunlight. In many climates, there's no access to much sunlight. Our entire lives have moved from communing with nature, living on the land, eating a natural diet, absorbing the sunshine, breathing the fresh air, to living indoors, cut off from the sunlight, breathing recirculated air, and eating processed foods packaged up in a box with God knows what inside of it, right? What a shift. And then not only that, we now go out into the sunshine. Everyone's wearing what? Sunglasses. Got to get your sunglasses on to protect you from the sun. What else are we doing? Wearing hats all the time, covering up, getting in the shade. All of these things are now mainstream. Is it contributing to the huge decline in human health? Is it as simple as that? The disconnection from the power of the sun that it truly has to provide us with health and healing. Yet we've been led to believe the opposite. Just ask yourself this question. How do you feel when you're in the sun? Don't think about what somebody told you. Don't think about a research study coming out of some university. Don't think about any of that. Think about, how do you feel when you are in the sunshine? I know how I feel. It's amazing. I love feeling the sun, and I love feeling it warm my skin. I need the sun in my life personally. I love it. Now, how do you get sunshine safely? Because nowhere in any of this literature about using sun for health are they talking about burning the skin. That is not what we're talking about. If you burn the skin too much, we know it can cause damage, and it basically causes what's called dermal stress, and it pulls the blood toward the skin, which is toward the capillaries. And if you pull too much blood on the skin, you're pulling the blood away from your vital organs, and it can be a cardiovascular risk. That's kind of the theory behind it, of why burning the skin is not beneficial. But is getting small amounts of sunlight to build up a protective base layer, which acts as a natural sunscreen, beneficial? Now, I can speak from my own experience with the sun. Every year I do this, every single year. And I've done this for probably my whole entire life. I just love being out in the sun. And if you go out in the sun in the spring, let's say that you're in a winter environment. So you've gone through some cold months, your skin has not seen the sun, and now you have no protective layer, right? You have no base melanin layer to help you protect against lots of sunshine. So what do you have to do? You go and you get small amounts at a time. And in the presentation that I watched, it was also coinciding with some books that I've read over the years that it takes about 4 weeks to transition and get your winter skin ready for the summer. And it's a natural process. You do not use sunscreen to do this. You go in the sun for small doses at a time. Maybe you start with 5 minutes and that's it, depending on the type of skin you have. Everybody's got their own levels of melanin, and it's different for each person. I'm somebody who can sit in the sun in 10 minutes and my whole body turns a different color. It happens quick for me. So I'm careful in the beginning of not burning the skin. Maybe for me, I'm sitting 20 minutes. That's my first go of it because I won't burn right away. But somebody who has real pale skin, you might burn right away. So maybe you start with 5 minutes. And every day you go out and you sit a little bit longer. And you sit a little bit longer until your skin is now brown, right? Or it's tanned or it's darkened, whatever that tone is for you. For people with darker skin naturally, they already have a base protection, but this still is a thing for people with dark skin. You're still wanting to transition so you have adequate protection from the sun so that you don't burn, so that you don't have that blood being pulled to the surface, that's going to pull away from your vital organs because you're burning yourself all the time. So about a month to get an adequate buildup of natural protection for you against burning all summer long. If you do it every spring, then you don't need to worry about sunscreen and lathering up or all this stuff because you're protected. I notice it in myself once I have that layer all summer long. I'm going to be out in the sun and I'm not going to burn. I just don't. I watched it with my own children when they were young and they have all different skin tones. Some of my kids are a little paler, a couple others are a little darker, and it didn't matter. As long as you build slowly, they were protected all the time. I was not lathering my children in massive amounts of toxic, chemically driven sunscreen. The other interesting point about sunscreen is that it blocks those chemical processes, the natural process that the full spectrum of light is giving us, and the body knows through DNA what to do with it. This doc from Germany in the lecture I was listening to, he was basically explaining that without sunscreen, your DNA allows for like 99.9% of molecules to dissipate the photon energy that's coming into the skin. Now, when you lather up sunscreen, especially the toxic chemically driven sunscreens, and how do you know that? You know it because the sunscreen you apply, if it's absorbed into the skin and you don't see it, it's going deep within the skin. That's just an observation you can make. The mineral sunblocks that are more natural and actually can help you, they make your skin look white, right? They don't rub in, but that's a good thing because it's not soaking into the skin. So what happens with these, most sunscreens on the market, it's blocking that entire process of how the body naturally dissipates the photon energy. So what happens is it creates a lot of free radicals. And free radicals are a detriment to health. At least there's a lot of research into that. Oxidation and free radical damage is not good. So think about these things in your life, when you're out in the sun. Is there another way to get into the sunshine that can be beneficial to my health as opposed to burning constantly and detrimental? It simply requires a transitional period in the spring or early summer before the sun is so intense to build up a natural skin protection. Another thing to bring up is the sun enters our body through two mechanisms. The skin, which is obvious, it is the largest organ in the body, and then it's coming in through the eyes. When we're blocking the eyes with sunglasses, you have to wonder if that is blocking the natural full spectrum light that we would receive into the body. And what processes does sunlight actually help regulate in our bodies? Well, it appears that it helps with the hormonal balance of the body. When the eyes bring in sun going to the pituitary and the pineal gland, it can also help with the circadian rhythm of the body. This is our natural biology, transitioning from daylight to nighttime. It's a natural process. Just like I said earlier, is there a problem with people's sleep cycles because they're not getting enough adequate full spectrum sunlight into their bodies? And it's causing a major disruption in many people's sleep cycles. Food for thought. It's possible. Another thing the sunlight is doing is affecting the sympathetic and parasympathetic activity of the nervous system. So there's more going on with the sunshine than potentially burning the skin. It's providing us with health, vitality, energy, so that we can produce and do the things that we do in our life. If you're someone who's noticing that you're low energy, you're feeling down, your hormones are all out of whack, maybe try getting adequate sunshine every single day. Start small. Start with 5 minutes. Build up that base over time so that you are protected, and then you can enjoy your time in the sun and not get fried, and crispy and hurting. We've all had a sunburn before, right? But learning how to do it so that you can avoid that is key. And then you don't have to feel like you can't go in the sun. So many people, I think, now think they can't go out there. Well, it's not good for me. And their health is continuing to decline. So that's my big takeaway today is the sun, that it's vital for life. If it's vital for the plants and animals, it's vital for us. But can it be done safely? And is there evidence in the past that light therapy actually helped heal diseases that were already there? I will link everything in the show notes so that you can look at it yourself. And I hope that this leads you to start thinking a little differently about how much protein you need. Do I need a lot of dairy for my calcium intake and my strong bones? Do I really have to hit the gym for 40 hours a week to live longer? And do I need this much sleep? And why am I not sleeping so well? Think about all this stuff, and maybe, just maybe, the sun has a huge impact on our overall health and vitality. That'll wrap up today's show. Until next time, I invite you to check out my website at livelikeeden.com. You can sign up for a weekly email reminder when my new podcast and blog comes out, which is every Wednesday. If you are struggling with your own awakening process and you need further assistance or guidance, you can also sign up for a free consult, and I would be more than happy to work with you. If you're enjoying the show, I ask that you share it with others that you think it might benefit. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.